Okay. All right, guys, we're ready to get started here. We're ready. Sorry. Tired. Does this say, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't, hold on. What stream? This stream doesn't say the right thing. Hold on, guys, let me rejoin this. No, I'm going to keep it like this. I can change it here. Hold on. This says, this is the story of Prophet Yusuf, alayhi salam. I can change it on YouTube. Okay. Okay, everybody can hear me now. Okay, let's get started. Okay, everybody can hear me now. Okay, let's get started. All right. In alhamdulillah, wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our series on the stories of the prophets of Allah, alayhi salam. And when we discuss the stories of the prophet of Allah, I want you guys to remember that the stories that I am presenting to you, the information is not received from the people of the book. I am not using Ibn Kathir's book or anybody's book about that where they took information from what the Christians or Jews have said. The reason being because, first of all, those books do not even exist. Okay, those books are not even in existence. You know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained to us that Allah says in the Quran that he destroyed those books. Allah destroyed those books before he even sent down the Quran. So the books that they use today, you don't know what in it is true and what in it is not true. So we stay away from those books. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whatever good that Allah had in those books, you will find them in the Quran. So these stories are not taken from the Bible or any of that. They're taken directly from the authenticated sources. And let me put the PowerPoint up. The last time we met for this class, we spoke about how Yusuf, alayhi salam, was removed from prison. He was released from prison due to the fact that he interpreted a dream for the king that no one else was able to interpret. The king was so impressed with him that he released him, had him released from prison. And when he met him, he was so impressed with his character, his good behavior, that he decided to give him a full pardon and offered him a position with him. But Yusuf refused to be pardoned unless the people admitted that what they accused him of was a lie. And that's when the king called in for all the prime ministers and their wives to enter. And he asked them, what did they think about Yusuf? And the women just came out and admitted he did nothing wrong. We did not even know he was in prison. They said, we tried to seduce him. He never violated us. He refused us and left. And that's when the Grand Vizier, his wife, looked really stupid. And we said that's when the story of Yusuf and Zuleika ended, because Allah doesn't mention anything more about this woman. There's a lot of myths out there that maybe he married her. I don't think so. Like I said, it's not even important because Allah moves on in there. And we talked about how he was offered a position to represent the king. And he turned the position down instead and chose to be of a minor position, which entailed overseeing the grain, so that when those dreams that he predicted become true, he'll be the one to be able to divide the granary up usefully. So that's where we left off with this story. And so today, let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen, and we're going to kick it off, begin where we picked up, and let me... I just finished the PowerPoint, so inshallah it should be good. I haven't had a chance to look it over. So any mistakes that are there, they're just my mistakes. So this is part 4. Uh-oh. What did I do? Okay. This is part 4 of the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay? And let's start this off. So the wheels of time had turned. Yusuf was now over the granary. And during the 7 good years, he had control over the cultivation, the harvesting, and the storage of the crops. But just as his dream predicted, after those 7 good years came 7 bad years, in which there was lots of drought. So a lot of the grains died out. There was lots of famine that spread throughout the region, including to Canaan, the home of Yusuf, the home where Yusuf was from. Now remember, at this part in history, Yusuf was in Egypt working for the king. But he was not Egyptian. Okay, he was Hebrew. He was from the country of Canaan. Okay. And back home, remember, Yusuf, he advised the king that since his kingdom was blessed with the reserve grain, that he should take some of the grain that they had stored for these years and sell it to the needy people who lived in the other lands like Canaan and other places. And the king agreed. And soon the word got out from Egypt that the king was selling grain to the people at a reasonable price, so as the people wouldn't starve. Back in Canaan, which is where Yusuf was born, his father Jacob, remember Jacob was a prophet too, and Jacob was his father. And Yusuf had 10 other brothers. 12 other brothers. What Jacob did when he heard the news that the king was giving out grain, he sent 10 of his sons to Egypt to purchase some provisions. Okay? He didn't send Benjamin. Benjamin was the brother of Yusuf. And again, Jacob didn't trust his other sons with him, like because of what they did to Yusuf. So he sent the 10 sons together without Benjamin. And when the word got to Yusuf that there were 10 brothers who had arrived in court, who had come from a long land far away, who could not speak the language of the Egyptians, he became curious because he knew the language of Canaan. That's where he was from. So when these 10 brothers came to see him to ask for grain, Yusuf alayhi salam immediately recognized who they were. He recognized that they were his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Why not? Well, to them, Yusuf no longer existed. To them, they had sold him away in slavery. And also remember, years had passed. When they last laid eyes on Yusuf alayhi salam, he was a child. He was a young teenage child. Well, now he's a grown bearded man, a grown bearded man. So of course they didn't recognize him. Okay. When the 10 brothers entered into the court, Yusuf welcomed them warmly. He gave them provisions, and he asked where they had come from, and they explained. They said, "We are 11 brothers, and we are the children of a noble prophet of Allah. Our youngest brother is at home, helping our father, who is now grown old in age." Okay. And when Yusuf alayhi salam heard that his father was weak and old, his eyes began to fill with tears, because he wanted to see his father. He wanted to hold his brother again. So he said, "Are you telling the truth? Are you really telling the truth?" And this was strange to the 10 brothers. They said, "Why would this man ask us if we're lying when we don't even know him?" So they said, what reason do we have to not tell the truth? And then Yusuf looked at them and he said, "Well, if what you are saying is true, then prove it by bringing your youngest brother here so I can meet him. And if you bring your younger brother, I will give you a double reward in provisions. But if you don't bring him to me, then you better not come back, because you ain't getting nothing." Because remember, guys, Yusuf didn't know what happened to his brother Benjamin. He knew that his brothers were jealous of the two of them because they were the sons of the favorite wife of the prophet Jacob. So he didn't know if they had killed his brother too out of jealousy. So using the wisdom that Allah gives the prophets of Allah, Yusuf let them know, "Bring your brother here so I can see if what you're telling is the truth. Otherwise, I'm going to think you lying, and you better not show your face near this country." And the 10 brothers assured him that they would fulfill his command. But they told him, "We have to get our father's permission, though, because our father is very attached to our younger brother." But they left and then headed home to try to do as Yusuf had commanded them to do. And all of this is taken from the Quran. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. "And Joseph's brothers came, and they entered upon him, and he recognized them, but they did not recognize him. And what he had finished them forth with provisions, he said, 'Bring me a brother of yours from your father. See you not that I give good measurements, and that I am not one of the best hosts? But if you don't bring them to me, then there will be no measurements of corn for you. And with me, you best not ever come here.'" So Allah tells us what happened there in the Quran. Allah also tells us what the brothers said. When Yusuf said this to them, they said, "We will try to get permission from our father. And verily, we will do what you ask." And that's when Yusuf alayhi salam told his servants to put their money, the money that they had brought for the corn, to take that money and put it in their bags so that they might know it when they go back to their people. Okay, because he wanted to make sure that they would come back. And Allah speaks about this in the Quran. Okay. So what Joseph did after that, he prepared a feast for his brothers. Okay. Because what happened was the brothers went back home and they convinced their father to allow them to come back with Benjamin, because one of the king's visors wants to meet him to assure that they weren't lying about where they came from and who they were. Prophet Jacob did not want to do it, but he ended up agreeing to it. And so the brothers got their younger brother, and they came marching back to Egypt. And when Yusuf alayhi salam heard they had come back, he welcomed them heartily. And it was very hard for him to control his emotions. It was very hard for him to not reach out when he saw his brother Benjamin and hug him and kiss him. So what he did was he arranged a feast, and he had his beloved brother Benjamin sit on his right next to him. And when Benjamin sat there, he began to cry. And Yusuf alayhi salam asked him, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because if my brother Yusuf were here, I would have sat next to him instead of anyone else, instead of you or anyone else." In other words, this was Benjamin's way. I mean, back in those days, to show how honorable the host felt about you, he would have you sit next to him. Whoever ate in the home of a person and sat next to that person was who the host was most pleased with. So when Yusuf had Benjamin sit next to him, Benjamin cried because, oh my God, the person most pleasing to me was my brother Yusuf, and I would have chosen to sit next to him out of honor, out of respect, because that's what they did back then. Okay? And when Benjamin told Yusuf this, it took everything in Yusuf to not cry as well. So what happened was, later that night, when the other brothers had left out the room to go attend to their needs, Yusuf and Benjamin were alone. And Yusuf asked him whether he would like to have him for a brother. He said, "I know you told me that your brother, where he living, you would have sat next to him." He said, "What about me? Am I as kind as your brother? Would you like to have me for a brother?" And Benjamin respectfully answered him and said that you are a wonderful host, but you could never take the place of my real brother. And when he said that, Yusuf began to break down and cry. His eyes ran with tears. He said, "Oh, my loving brother, I am the brother who was lost and whose name you are constantly repeating." He said, "Allah has brought us together after many years of separation. This is the favor of Allah. But let it be a secret between us. Don't tell your other brothers who I am." And both Benjamin, he became as happy as Yusuf and flung his arms around him, and they wept and cried together. So the two brothers were reunited. The next day, while the bags were being filled with grain to take back, Yusuf, just to test everything, he ordered one of his attendants to place the king's gold cup, which the king would use to measure out grain. He ordered his servant, to take that cup and put it in the saddle of Benjamin. And when the brothers returned and were getting ready to set out, and the gates were locked. And then the court crier screamed out, "Oh, you travelers, you're not going anywhere. You are all thieves." And that's when people stopped doing what they were doing and came to watch, because they knew that this was going to be a showdown. And the brothers were surprised. They said, "Lost? What does that have to do with us? What have you lost?" And the soldier said, "We lost the king's golden cup. Whoever can find it, we will give a breastload of grain to that person." And all Yusuf's brothers uttered their defense. They began to cry out in defense, "We have not come here to corrupt the land. We did not come here to steal. We just came for some grain." The army men did what Yusuf had told them to do, and they said, "What punishment do you choose for being a thief?" And the brothers said together, "According to our law, whoever steals becomes a slave to the owner of the property he stole from." And that's when the soldiers pondered it, and they said, "That sounds like a good enough arrangement." They said, "We will use the laws of your land instead of the laws of Egypt in this case." Okay? And that's when the leader of the army ordered his soldiers to begin searching the horses and camels of the 10 brothers' caravan. And Yusuf, alayhi salam, was watching the whole thing from above, from up high, from high upon his throne. He sat on his throne just watching everything. And he had given instructions to the men for Benjamin's bag to be the last one searched, because he knew that he had the bag, the cup placed in his bag and not the others. Okay? So what happened? What happened? After searching the older 10 brothers' horses and saddles and not finding anything, they then went to search Benjamin's. And before they began to search it, Yusuf said, "Don't search his bag, because he's so young. He's a kid. He doesn't look like a thief." Okay? And when Yusuf said that, he was testing to see how his older brothers felt about Benjamin. That's the wisdom, the insight. He knew that his brothers were jealous of him. He knew that his life at home had been hell because of those brothers. But all these years, he worried about Benjamin. And he wanted to know if his brother Benjamin was subjugated to the same abuse that he was as a kid. So he knew that if he said that, if the brothers objected and said, "No, search him too," he would know that they had a dislike for him. But instead, his brothers said, "Don't." They said, "We will not move an inch unless his saddle is searched as well." They said, "But the reason why we want you to search him is because all of us are sons of a prophet. None of us are thieves." And that was a wise answer, a wise response that his brothers gave. They demanded that his saddle be searched, but not out of jealousy, not out of any of that, but to prove that they had changed, and that the feelings they had for Benjamin were not like they had for Yusuf. They weren't harmful feelings. You know, they cared about Benjamin. They loved Benjamin, but they didn't want no doubt to be in the minds of this king and his people that any of them would come to their land and disrespect them by stealing. So that's why they demanded that his saddle be searched, not out of jealousy, animosity, but to prove this is my brother. And my brother is innocent like we are. We are one. We are the sons of a prophet. Stealing is beneath us. We would never do that. This impressed Yusuf. This impressed him. So the soldiers reached in their hands and they pulled out the cup that Yusuf had hidden in there. And when they pulled out the king's cup, the brothers were shocked. They said, no, no, no. He's never done this before. They said he had a brother. Maybe his brother did stuff like that. They said, but not him. So again, that showed Yusuf that the feelings they had for him, they really didn't have for Benjamin. They cared about him. They tried to make an excuse for him. They said if he's a thief, it's something that he inherited from his brother because he's never done anything like this before. So they tried to blame it on his parenting, his blood. Because remember, they all had different mothers, the same father, different mothers. So what they were saying is that must run in his mother's blood because his older brother had a problem. His mother probably had a problem, but he's never done this before. And when Yusuf heard their resentment, it made him become regretful. But he swallowed his own resentment. And he said to himself, you went further than what you should have done. And it shall go bad with you and worse in the hereafter because Allah knows your intention. So in other words, Yusuf know that this test that he tried to give to his brothers, he went too far with it. Maybe he should not have put the cup in the saddle. Maybe he should have thought of something else or whatever. But Allah knows that he didn't mean no harm by it. So anyway, the brothers kept on going back and forth with their remarks, and then finally they stopped. And then they forgot their secret satisfaction because something happened with them. They began to think about their father, Jacob, who was a prophet. They began to think about how they promised their father that they would not betray his son. They knew they betrayed his son with Yusuf. They knew what they did to Yusuf, but they were sincere. It was not their intentions to do that with Benjamin. And they began to think about that. And that's when they began to beg Yusuf for mercy. They said, oh, minister, take one of us in place of him. He is the son of a good man. And we can see that you're a good man too. It would hurt our father to lose him. So we'll take whatever punishment on behalf of him. And that's when Yusuf noticed that too. They would never do that for him. So he said, how can you want to free the man who you just said, if he's a thief, is something that's inherited in him? Why would you want to, take the fall for someone who committed a crime other than yourselves? The brothers continue to beg for mercy. However, the guards of the king said, the king has spoken and his word is the law. So the oldest brother, he became very nervous. He said, look, we promised our father in the name of Allah that we would protect our brother Benjamin and bring him back. He said, I'm telling you, I will stay behind and I will be the one to take the punishment. Now, remember, the oldest brother was the one who wanted to kill Yusuf. He's the one that had the biggest jealousy, the worst resentment against Yusuf. So Yusuf listened to him. He said, this is the one that was out to get me, but he's willing to take the fall for my brother. And listen to what Allah says about this scene in the interpretation, the meaning. He said, when they entered, according to their father's advice, the town, it did not avail them in the least against the will of Allah. It was but a need of Jacob's inner self, which he discharged. And he was blessed with knowledge because we taught him, but most men knew not. And when they went before Yusuf, he took his brother aside and said, I am your brother, so do not grieve over what they used to do. So when he had furnished his brothers with food and provisions, he put the golden bowl into his brother's bag. And then the crier cried out, O you in the caravan, you are thieves. And they, turning towards the man, said, what is it that you have missed? And the man said, we have missed the golden bowl of the king. And for he who produces it is the reward of a camel's load of provisions. They said, by Allah, you know that we did not come here to make mischief in the land. We are not thieves. Yusuf's brother said, the penalty should be that whoever's bag is found should be held for punishment. This is how we, where I come from, punish the wrongdoers. So when Yusuf began the search in their bags, he searched their bags before his brother. Then he searched his brother's bag and pulled out the cup. Thus did we plan for Yusuf. He could not take his brother by the law of the king as a slave, except Allah willed it. So Allah made the brothers to bind themselves with their way of punishment. We raise to degrees whom we please. But over all those endowed with knowledge is the knowledge of Allah. And Yusuf's brother said, if he steals, there was a brother of his who stole before him. But these things did Yusuf keep to himself, revealing not the secrets to them. He said to himself, you are in worst case, and Allah knows best the truth of what you say. And they said, O ruler of the land, verily, he has an old father who will grieve for him. So take one of us in his place. Indeed, we think that you are one of the good doers. And he said, Allah forbid that we should take anyone but him whom we found our property with. Indeed, we shall be wrongdoers if we did not. So here you can see, guys, the whole story is taken from the Quran. Allah tells us what happened. So the brothers had no choice but to leave. And the brothers left enough provisions behind for Judah, who was the oldest, because Judah refused to go back to their father unless he came back with Benjamin. So as the other brothers left to go back and tell their father what happened, Judah stayed behind in a motel, awaiting the fate of Benjamin. And in the meantime, Yusuf had his brother Benjamin come and stay in his house as his own personal guest, and told him how he came up with this plan to put the cup in his bag in order to keep him behind to protect him. He was also happy, he told Benjamin, that their older brother stayed behind because he just proved that he had changed, that he had become a good brother. And what Yusuf did was he secretly told some guards to stand watch over his older brother to make sure that nobody tried to harm him. So here you can see the tests were completed. Yusuf was happy that his older brother had changed. He was happy that all his brothers cared for Benjamin. And so his plan was to send the others back to test their sincerity, to see if they too had changed by coming back for the two they left behind. He learned from this endeavor that the oldest brother, who was the worst of them all, had changed. But now he wanted to make sure that the other ones did too. So what happened? Well, when the others arrived home, they went to their father and they said, oh father, your son has stolen. Jacob, alayhi salam, was shocked. He said, patience be with me. Perhaps Allah will return all of my sons to me. And he could feel the loneliness entering into his heart because he loved Benjamin, just like he loved Yusuf, but he also loved all his other sons too. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning. Return, Judah said, return to our father and say, O father, verily your son Benjamin has stolen, and we testify not except according to what we know, and we have no knowledge of the unseen. And ask the people of the town where we have been, what happened. And ask the caravan in which we return what happened, so you can see we're telling the truth. So here you can see Benjamin knew that they had, Judah, the oldest one, knew that they had lost the trust of their father by what they did with Yusuf, alayhi salam. He didn't want his father to know that they had, or think that they had done that to this one. So he had told them, let our father ask the witnesses, so he can see that we are truthful and honest, that we would never betray our brother ever again. And Jacob said, no, but your own selves have beguiled you into something. So patience is more fitting for me. Maybe Allah will bring them back, all of them back to me. So Yusuf tried to be patient. He knew that this, as a prophet, that this was a test from Allah. This was Allah's way of testing him and his faith. Allah will test us until we die. Death itself is a test. So Yusuf, his father, Jacob, was calling upon Allah, to give him the ability to remain patient with his daughter. And that's where we're going to stop at for today. So what happens next? Benjamin is taken as a prisoner, so they think. Judah is left behind in a strange place by himself with nothing to defend himself, so they think. And in the meantime, Yusuf alayhi salam is happy to be reunited with his brother, happy to have seen all his other brothers, happy to have received knowledge about how his father was doing, and happy to know that his brothers were all concerned with the happiness of their father. So what happens next? You guys have to tune in next week, tune in next Tuesday, and we'll go into the conclusion of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And like I was telling you guys yesterday, all these stories, the stories of the female heroines of Islam, the stories of the companions, the stories of the prophets, they are all great lessons for us to implement and learn in our personal lives. Life is filled with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of disappointments, a lot of pain, hurt, suffering. But we have to keep our chin up and know that this is all a test. Remember, this world was never designed to be a place of happiness for the believer. It's only designed to be happiness for the unbelievers, the weak in faith. Those of us strong in faith, we will experience bliss when we cross that Sirat bridge, whereas they have nothing coming except the hellfire. So we learn from these stories and I try to live up to the standards that these great men and women lived up to, and learn to brush the trials of life off, knowing that Allah is never going to put a burden on us that's too great to bear. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop right here. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments about this story? Yeah. Brother Sadiq, mashallah, Brother Sadiq. Okay, anyone else? Brother Aki Rain, good job. Aki Rain, wa alaikum salam, welcome here. Sister Fatima Muhammad, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, welcome here. Yeah, and no questions nor comments. Anybody in his own room?
Yes, I was thinking you have to be careful what you do, because if you're doing something wrong or wrong somebody, it'll come back to you and bite you in some kind of way. That's
It
what I
may
was
take
thinking.
years, but it'll happen.
Yeah.
Life is a circle. It goes around and around. We come into this world bald, wrinkled up, unattractive, needy. And how do we go out? The same way, bald, wrinkled up, unattractive, and needy. It's sad.
It was a great story.
Yeah.
A good story.
Alhamdulillah.
I love this story anyway.
Me too.
But I like the way you're doing it, because everybody tells it in a different way. But I like this story. I really like it.
Yeah, we want to try to, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Allah sent these revelations down about these great men and the women behind him and all of that, he tried to do it. I try to do it like he did. He would tell it in a way where the companions could envision themselves. Also he gave it to them in a manner to let them see that their struggles are not as bad as they think, that there's always someone who struggles harder and worse than you. Learn from these men and women, how they never lost their faith. They dealt with it. Whatever hardship happened, jealousy, betrayal, servitude, slander, being a person slandering you, lying on you, being the laughing stock, being bullied, whatever we are experiencing in this world, it's nothing like these men, and these men experienced it all. That's why it behooves me when I hear some of these famous brothers talking about how they'll take the fatwas of Islam Q&A over the hadiths, because the fatwas were given by men of our era, and these men had technology and they were able to trace hadiths better. I have never heard such garbage, because until you learn how to raise the dead and talk to the dead, what makes you think your technology can get you anywhere with this? That's why you have to be careful, guys, who you're taking knowledge of Islam from. No other comments? Let me see on our YouTube. Okay, here's a question. Can we get our key? I don't know what that is. I don't understand what that means. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go into the next class, which is our Hadith class, which is not long. It's only 10 or 15 minutes, because we're taking the Hadith from the book Beware of Sheikh Atlees. And let me put that on the screen. Hold on. Let me screen share. I'm not screen sharing. Okay, hold on. Let me screen share. Okay, this is the book compiled by Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Atlee, a hadith book called Beware. And these are all hadiths where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us as Muslims to beware of certain things that can end up standing between our faith and practice. We talked about how the Prophet said to beware of lying and the dangers of it. Injustice, its dangers. Suspicion, its dangers. Lying on the Prophet, its dangers. Entering upon non-mahram women, its dangers. Innovation, its dangers. And looking at your sins as being insignificant. Well, today we're going to talk about this hadith here. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, beware of miserliness. What does it mean to be miserly? To be miserly means to be stingy, selfish, an opportunist. This is a person that wants everything to belong to him and not anyone else. You're not going to share. You're not going to help those in need. Well, let's take a look at the Hadith, which is narrated by Ibn Amir Ibn al-As. He said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave a khutbah, and he said in his khutbah, stay away from miserliness, because those who had been miserly before you were destroyed because of it. If miserliness commanded them to show stinginess, it also commanded them to cut their relationships with their relatives. So they did that. It also commanded them to use evil and obscenity. So they did that. We see that happening today with us as Muslims. Look how many of us are cutting ties with our relatives. You don't want to speak to your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your nieces. Okay, you cut your ties of kinship. Why? Because of miserliness, stinginess, jealousy. You don't want your family to know that you got $1 million because you're afraid that they might ask for help from you. That's a miserly person. So there's many lessons to learn from this hadith. Number one, money is best spent by doing good deeds with it. It's best spent by helping others. Also, stinginess eventually leads to the destruction of many communities of Muslims, and many communities of other things too. Stinginess also leads to hatred. It'll cause the people to despise you. It'll cause the people to hate to be around you. And it also leads to greed, because you don't want anyone to have what you know more than you. So as Muslims, we should offer any resistance, no matter how small it is, against stinginess. A Muslim cannot afford to be stingy with actions that do not cost money, such as kind words and smiles. So again, guys, a wonderful hadith. You don't want to cheat yourself out of blessings just because of your stinginess. How does this hadith impact any of you? Would anyone like to share?
I have something to say.
Okay.
This hadith just reminds me of like something that I've personally been observing. Like, a lot of people like back home in my country, they ask for money from their family, and their family gives it to them. But I know like this one woman, like she's sick and she doesn't work at all. And like her relatives, especially like her half siblings, they would ask her for money, and she tells them all the time, look, I'm not working. Like, I don't work. Like, my kids pay my bill, and they're barely making it themselves because they have to pay off their schooling because they're in school, and they also work at the same time because they're helping me because I cannot work. I'm not in the clear. But they would always like still ask her for money, even though they know that she's sick. And I'm like, you're technically being greedy, because this person is telling you that they don't have money. Like, they're telling you that they're sick and they're trying to focus on their recovery, but you're over here asking for money. And every time you come up with an excuse to be like, oh, like I'm sick, or oh, like my wife is pregnant, can you give me some money? And I told the lady, I was like, first of all, I've seen people from other countries like West Africa, they will literally walk to a different country if they have to provide for their family. Why can't they do the same? And like, she's just having like, well, now she knows that she's not going to give them money because like she literally doesn't have anything. But like, she was just like reflecting and thinking about like, why was I giving them money when I'm struggling myself? Like, and I was thinking like, not people who are less fortunate are also greedy too, because they think just because you live in a different country, a developed country, that money grows on tree, and they have that perception, but really they don't know the reality of how hard it is, and they're always begging for money. Even though you give it to them, it would last them like months, but they ask for more because they're so greedy and they don't want to work. Like they just want to manipulate people so they can live off of them, them working hard, so they can do nothing and just stay home and just get money from another person. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, this is a big problem, guys, what she's talking about. There's a lot of people like that, especially on social media. Look how every summer, I have to tell y'all, be careful of these trollops on Facebook, this GoFundMe crap. I am so sick of that. Y'all need to never fall for that GoFundMe crap. A Muslim want to buy a brand new car. All they got to do is go on Facebook, make themselves look raggedy and poor, take a couple of videos of the projects, and then go grab somebody's baby and pose in the picture holding that person's baby and a sign saying, "Hello, look, I need some Sadaqah." And then you'd be surprised how ignorant people on Facebook will donate thousands of dollars to a person that's a scammer. So we have to be careful. A lot of people don't want to work for it, guys. They want it to come down to the sky to them. And there's a lot of Muslims getting over ripping people off, with this GoFundMe. It even happened to me. I'll never forget when my stepfather died. I was so shocked. A couple of famous personalities, they had a GoFundMe page. I'm like, what the heck? And they put on that GoFundMe page, help this brother's widow and children. I'm like, I'm 60 years old. My brother is 64, 62. My sister is 58. My other brother is 50. My other brother is 48. My other one is 47. Who the heck? We ain't no little kids here. We grown people. We're engineers and doctors and well-off family. My stepfather died and was buried within 24 hours. Cash, expenses paid, debts paid off too. What the heck? But somebody was trying to scam to raise money. Y'all be careful of this stuff. And you'd be surprised the Muslims that do this, man. These were famous personalities. That's how they found out who I was. I think it's so funny. I had to have Dr. Jamali call them people up. And he told them, y'all know whose father that is y'all got as y'all a poster boy for this month? No, that's Sister Layla. That's her stepfather. What? Ain't no babies at home. We wave. Oh, we got children and grandkids. And they all well taken care of. SubhanAllah. So I'm telling you, that's when I said that internet is dangerous. That GoFundMe crap is dangerous, guys. Y'all, I wouldn't donate a dime to anybody saying GoFundMe. I wouldn't waste my money on that crap. I tell y'all, if y'all want the best charity is to take whatever money that you have left over after paying your expenses, split it in half. Half of it to your local masjid, because that way you are helping the Muslims in your community, which is an obligation. The other half, you want to help the Muslims in the world, donate it to this website, to Sunnahfollowers online, because the best gift that you can give any Muslim is the gift of true knowledge and true understanding of this deen. And we are international. There's Muslims in every country who are coming here learning the truth. Look at the blessings you are getting for keeping this website on the internet so that we can steer you away from the fraudulent people out there. That's how I tell my students to donate. Half to your mosque, the other half to this website. That's it. And you done did the best deed ever. You done helped the Muslims in your community, and you've helped the Muslims around the world in the best way. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to stop right here. I want to remind everybody, though, of something that's getting ready to happen in the next 30 minutes or so. There's a lot of you who do not know how to pronounce the Fatiha. You do not know how to pronounce the Tashahhud. Or maybe you need help with Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Maybe you need help with that, or help reciting a supplication. Please log back in at 10:30, 11 o'clock, because Brother Malik coming at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Brother Malik will be here to help with your pronunciation of the Fatiha, the Tashahud, or whatever you need. That's what he and his class will be every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to log out right now, but feel free to join us in the Zoom room, and also to participate in how to pronounce the Quran correctly and how to read the Fatiha. You have to join our Zoom room, guys. Let me give you all the Zoom room is right there, www.sunnahfollowers.net. That's our website. Click on www.sunnahfollowers.net, and when that pops up, click enter live class. That'll bring you directly into our Zoom room. Okay? All right, so I'm getting ready to close out now. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.